Welcome to this edition of Power Nuggets. Today, I want us to continue with what we began yesterday. We were talking about an altar, building an altar as a tool that will help you to have a fresh start. Altars are very important, as we said. You need to have a personal altar. That is where you pray alone. You take time to seek the Lord alone. Number two, you need to have a family altar where you meet as a family. There are many people who you have been spouse, you've been married, and you've never prayed together. The family never prays together. You have a family of grown-ups. You have children that have been in your house for long, and they've never prayed with you. You need to have a family altar. Very, very important. I challenge you today to go build a family altar. And then you need to have a corporate altar where you meet as a congregation, where you call as your church. Those three altars are very important. There are many other altars that we could talk about, but I believe those three are very, very important. One man that I love in the Bible that built an altar is David. David comes to a place where he needs God's forgiveness. He needs God to give him a fresh start. He has sinned against God. And what does he do? He goes to the field of Araunah to build an altar for God. And he goes to buy that field. And there's some things that will help us today to understand what we need to do when it comes to building an altar. Number one, understand that an altar must be done with a consecrated heart. This guy built an altar and he went to God. He wanted to receive forgiveness, and with a consecrated heart he went before the Lord. That is 2 Samuel chapter 24. You see how he went and sought God. He sought the favor of God, and he sought Araunah so that he could get that particular land. And he sent by the prophet Gad. It is important for you to understand you need to consecrate your heart. What does consecration mean? Setting aside. You have to set yourself apart. You have to make sure that you do it and you set yourself apart. Don't be in the clutter of everything. When it is time for building your altar, make sure you set time aside, regardless of how things are, regardless of how thick things are. Make sure you set time aside to seek the Lord. It is also very important for you to understand when you build your altar, you have to do it in submission. Don't do it in rebellion. There are many people who build altars in rebellion. You're taking time to fast, you're taking time to seek the Lord, but you're doing it in rebellion. You're rebelling against your leader in the house, maybe your spouse. You're rebelling against your leaders in the church. You think that by going out and seeking God for long, it will help you. Regardless of how long you seek God, if you're doing it in rebellion, not in submission, it does not bring change. Altars are effective when you learn to do it in submission. David submits. David submits, and when he submits, guess what? He gets the blessing of God. It is very important for you to understand his altar became effective because he was under the submission of prophet Gad. Also understand when you build your altar, it has to cost you. It has to cost you. Don't say I'm building an altar, I'm doing something that is not sacrificial. In an altar, or an altar is up on top of an altar, there has to be a sacrifice. That is a place where you take your sacrifice. You have to sacrifice. Don't say, you know, I'm taking time off from Netflix, I'm taking time off from TV, I'm taking time off from seeing friends. That is the only thing you're doing. No, it has to cost you. An altar has to cost you. For it to be effective, it has to cost you. And you do it in obedience to God. It has to cost you, and you do it in obedience to God. Lastly, I want to say this. An altar has to be by sacrifice. For your altar to be effective, you have to sacrifice. Make sure you're putting costly sacrifices on the altar. It costed David to build the altar. That is why he told Araunah, I will not give to God that thing that does not cost me anything. It is important for you to know your altar has to cost you, and regularly service your altar by prayer, by offerings, by doing sacrifices to God. As I get out of your way, I want to encourage you today, 2022, whatever you are doing to God, let it be costly. That is how you make your altar effective. May your altar speak this year. May your altar alter your life this year. May your altar do great things for you this year. As you build your altar, I decree a fresh start in your life. See you tomorrow and enjoy a fresh start.